Hello and welcome to the Evolve Pipedrive podcast, where to all things Pipedrive, sales, apps, and Pipedrive marketplace. My name is Bruce Bignell. I own and run Evolve. We're a technology company based in the UK, working globally. We specialise in helping businesses do more with Pipedrive and their wider tech stack through implementation, consultancy, and training. Today, I have the great pleasure to be joined by Russell Bigg, the channel director for EMEA at Iris. Now, Iris is an audio technology company on a mission to enable the world to listen well. I'm really looking forward to this conversation with Russ for a couple of reasons. One, because Russ is one of the first people I spoke with when I was trying to start out the Evolve Pipedrive podcast, when I was sourcing, pitching the idea to all these businesses, trying to secure guests. And I really loved his energy, his willingness to help. Plus, I was very jealous of his training collection because it was a lost hobby I had from my early 20s. And I'm so happy that Russ has got his training collection behind him now. So without further ado, Russ, welcome.
Thank you.
Please can you introduce yourself and Iris to our audience?
I will do. Thanks for having us back. I appreciate to be here. Hello, everyone. So my name is Russell Bigg. I'm the EMEA Channel Director for Iris Audio Technologies. I've only actually been with Iris very short period of time, in just about 2 months now, so not a huge amount of time. However, I do have some experience in the world of audio, certainly working in UCAS and CCAS for over 20, well, nearly 20 years. So yeah, from my perspective, Iris is an amazing place to be, amazing company, great culture, and like you say, enabling the world with a mission to enable the world to listen well.
There we go. So listen up. So what is Iris? So Iris is where are you based? Obviously, you're in the UK, right? So where's HQ? What does a typical Iris customer look like? Obviously, coming from your background, is Iris servicing that environment? And tell me a little bit about the team as well.
Absolutely. So let me start by the organisation itself. We're based in London, just off of Oxford Street, so a lovely location. As an introduction to our business and our products, and I guess really the purpose of today is to sort of let you know and get you to think around what we're doing and what we're looking
Mm.
to achieve, because we think we've got something really interesting. So I guess what I want to talk about is one product particular today. We have a big roadmap, but really focus on one product today, and that's taking the market by storm. And we think the impact certainly it's having at the moment is tremendous, and it's introducing us to a bigger world. So we are extremely excited and how things are progressing, and where things are heading, from not just from a company perspective as we're growing, and growing at a fast rate, but also where our product is being placed, and who's utilizing the product. So it's a very much a fun and exciting place to be.
So what product exactly is this? Because I've been on your website, right? I've had a little introduction to the product, but and there seems to be a number of different areas that you guys have been focused on. So a lot of our, or most of our listeners are on Pipedrive, or they're considering the CRM switch. So what product in particular are you talking about there?
Okay. So to make it so let me explain. So Iris Audio Technology is our company,
Yeah,
and Iris Clarity is a particular product we're talking about today.
nice.
So I mean, here's a bit of background to that. So first of all, our we're a business that's very much, well, considered very much startup, and we're going through Series A funding right now. We're 4 years old. Originally, the idea was to take, as you mentioned at the start, is to make the world listen well, and that all today, and that will continue, still remains our strapline. And that has also that then manifested itself into initially into a piece of hardware, in the sense that we made some headphones with some really pioneering, and the concept of using AI to remove background noise. So in the early days, we talk about the early days, it was only 4 years ago. The company was accelerated with a partnership with Red Bull Racing, where we actually worked with Red Bull over the 2021 season, and worked with their pit wall to driver communications, to really stress test the application. So effectively, the most hostile environment we could get in order to test it out, and it was
Yeah.
a great success.
What Netflix series was that?
No, we should do one. Absolutely
Yeah.
should do one. There's been Netflix on all kinds of things, but yeah, so that's kind of the biggest stress test, and we've done that more so recently, and I can't really go into much detail about that at
Mhm.
the moment. But continued stress testing the product in those kind of environments, and also even further hostile environments. So it's a product that's ever evolving. But I think, Bruce, to be quite honest with you, the inception of, or where we found ourselves at the end of when 2020 and the COVID came along, we found ourselves in this, all of us thrust back into the world, and we were thinking, well, what about, how can we elevate this application to do something more mainstream? So
Mm,
by like taking away the hardware and then putting it into an application. So we talked about the headsets, and we took away that hardware application and then put it into an application, and so they can be used in a wider context, right?
mm,
So particularly, what was happening at the time. So when all call centers in the world were thrust back to work from home, and all the challenges with the noise that came from that, and effectively that gave birth to the product that you see and well hear today. So it's been a tremendous sort of journey in a short space of time. And it's, if I may, it's kind of we really only launched it officially last summer, so summer
mm,
of 2022. But we had like a pre-launch in the Expo in London in 2021, which was great. And at that time, the product was only in beta format. But after the general availability last year, it's just been extremely well received around the world, and we're not even scratching the surface of that now. So what Iris Clarity can actually do, and we've focused our attention on the contact center market, because it's an obvious place to accelerate the growth of our business, but also because of those 60 million agents that are suffering from this problem. And
mm,
so, hopefully today on this podcast, we're going to talk through some of that research we actually conducted last year that really supports the argument, and also give you maybe a surprise of exactly the magnitude of the problem in both terms of what the consumers and all the standard experience that they're trying to achieve in business today through voice. So yeah, a lot going on.
yeah.
See that's how it's transpired.
So that's really interesting. So before we jump into research, I'm going to be very ignorant because what I don't know, right, and just say how is this? How does this help? And just certainly since 2020, right, the amount of people that have jumped onto having to do more Zoom calls versus in person, the amount of whether it's call center agents having to work remotely or even going back into the office and wanting to have a better um, quality of call, less downtime, things like that. So I'm sure there's a load of different areas that we can touch upon. But like as an individual that's working with a remote team across Europe, if I'm working, I've had examples where I'm in a coffee shop and Marco, that some of you guys may know, that listen to this or may have dealt with him. Uh, I've got crying babies next to me, and he can't hear me what I'm trying to say, and I'm literally repeating myself 4 or 5 times. And I think this point touches on the hardware software piece, right? So I got these AirPods that have
Yeah,
noise cancelling. They're great. I've had work going on here, and I can't hear anything, which is wonderful. But that's one way, right? So if I'm right, what Clarity is doing is bio direct. I mean, am I touching on the kind of the business pain that it's solving here? Like, what is it?
yeah.
What are we actually? Or am I way off the mark?
No, no, no. You're absolutely spot on. So if so that scenario is very common. So a lot of organizations, they have that, not just homework environment, but people working in coffee shops and other areas. But also imagine from the consumer point of view, the customer, they're in these environments, right? And so I'm talking to you, and I'm an agent, and I'm asking you for your credit card details and all this stuff over the phone, and you're in this noisy area, and quite frankly, I can barely make out what you're saying, and I'm having to ask you to repeat yourself. And actually, on the similar angle, I've got an agents all lined up next to me, and there is a lot of conversation going around, and there's a lot of that passive noise all around me that is also interfering our conversation, which you're hearing. So because the RS Clarity is bidirectional, it will ensure that it blocks out both of those background noises for each party. So no more can you hear my background noise. So all the people talking around me and taking other credit card details and all that, which obviously we won't touch upon, but
Yeah.
that happens. I've experienced it. But you are, I'm also not hearing that baby crying or anything in the background, because the way that we've, over the last 4 years, we've trained the product to be the very best it can be in terms of understanding the spoken word.
Mm.
So it's true to say there's a lot of headphones that cancel out the background noise. So they will either create a different type of noise to block out that noise, or but and there's a lot more mechanics, and don't get me wrong, there's a ton of AI goes into that as well. So I will never belittle their product. But for the purpose of this, our USP, as you mentioned, is bidirectional.
Mm.
So the headsets you get out that will certainly enhance the experience, but it won't suppress all the noises from both directions. And in terms of contact center, you know, this is a huge issue across those 16 million that was mentioned before. So it is about the type of headset, it is about the environment, but if you add Aris Clarity, you don't need to think about those things anymore, because we'll focus on the voice. And I was talking to the CTO the other day, and we were discussing around the sort of language and the different ways that the AI is learning. And it's silly things like the monotone that you and I could probably speak in, and then it's the stereo, then it's the singing voices as well. And you don't really think about it, it's picking up and understanding and learning all of those different ways that the spoken word is actually translated,
Mm.
and not just from a language point of view, but just really on the way that it is actually spoken. So yeah, it absolutely sorts that problem out that you're talking about, and we're extremely excited about about this.
So tell me about the bloody research. Like what's occurring there? So that for me makes sense in my head what it's solved, like from certainly a business standpoint. But what does it actually mean to a business to improve this, right?
Well, let me take one step back, and only because I think it will set the expectation around this,
Mm.
the return on investment, and the stats that we've got. So obviously, the basics here, how the product works, our Clarity product works, is it. I won't go into the technical part, because I'm not really going to do that justice.
Yeah.
Suffice to say, but as you already mentioned, it is ultimately working in the background and removing that background noise at a latency of less than 10 milliseconds to
Right.
understand all of those spoken words. So, I mean, most importantly, as we just said, from both sides of that conversation, and I can't re-emphasize that enough.
Mm.
Whatever you might think about noise in terms of noise cancelling headphones, your agents or staff, that's very well, and it's great for the wearer, but obviously, and it has that impact to the agent's experience, but that's not helping the person speaking to them. So that's obviously why. And then if you think about that hostile environment, which you mentioned with like the race cars and other extreme environments, that has a huge impact on how people are their productivity. And because the product is working on a very low CPU usage, the application that runs on the desktop, so it's a application that sits locally on the desktop, and that's an important factor to know. It's already it's taking the audio that's coming through at such a speed that the latency is you can't even hear it to the
Oh,
human.
10 milliseconds is tiny. So I'm a little
Yeah,
bit of a gamer. So I mean that's I think the human is anywhere between 4 and 6 hundredths of a millisecond is like what you if you press a button when it touches your goes to the TV, right? So it's a 10 millisecond is tiny.
yeah.
It's a
And so as to say, it's the best it's in the market, and something that we can really track, and all of the enhancements and the updates to the product are only making it better. So it's really it's a really kind of a good way of looking at this, that it's only ever going to get better. If the CPU usage is under 5% and the speed it translates that, the quality of the audio is under 10 milliseconds, and it's only going to get better.
Hmm.
Well, that's an impressive part. So yeah, well, look, the stats, there's a lot of stats. So I guess really the best place to start is much like the product when we released it last summer. We commissioned a market research study to a thousand customers surveyed, and I think it's 500 agents, etc. And these are some of the highlights or things that are highlighted in the summary. So essentially, with regards to the if you think about it two ways, right? So what without Iris and without Iris is
Hmm.
the type of message we're trying to get across here. So what in this study, as I mentioned, 85% of those 1,000 customers, 500 agents of the advisors said that background noise was resulting in wasted time on both sides, right? So we have a return on investment calculator, which we'll go to and talk about, but essentially that's a huge amount of time that people are saying, that noise is affecting their productivity hugely. And 85% of those advisors say that that's the case.
Let's have an example for our listeners here, right? So background noise getting in the way of it could be a transactional conversation. It could be, what's your address? Can you please repeat your address? I think was that 21? Was that 30? Is that what you're talking about there? What's some
100%. So background noise has a huge impact on the flow of the conversation. So if the and don't get me wrong, we obviously know that sometimes the signals aren't that great from
for
phone
sure?
to
Yeah,
mobile, so that has an effect as well. But there is this element of repetition which we keep on going on about, and it is wasted time because, like you said in that example, can you say that again? Or I didn't get that. Or was it a two or a three? Or,
yeah,
those kind of things are really, and they add up. You think about one call, that could have 10, 15 seconds delay. And if you break that down, like we've done in the ROI calculator, there's some significant costs are
mm,
associated to wasted time, not just productivity, but also cost. So this survey is obviously, in that particular example, 85% of those advisors said that the background noise is in wasted time on both sides. So that's that productivity. But I guess, Bruce, if you look at it, what Iris Clarity does, with when you've turned Iris Clarity on, we're expecting through the acknowledgement of that problem, we're seeing greater than 10% reduction in agent handling time. It doesn't seem like a huge amount, but it is massive because think about the productivity and the accountability and effectiveness of those agents. Handling that call and reducing the time it takes to complete that call makes them so much more efficient moving forward, and how they can how they can get on, and there's a lot of other factors within the surveys we'll talk about in a minute,
yeah.
has a big impact on that. So just by adding clarity on that particular example around the wasted noise and the wasted time, then we're looking to increase the reduction in agent handling time by 10%.
And that's 10%. Is that against each call? Against because if they're making multiple calls, right? That's where you get the compounding effects over time. So it's 10% over 100 calls a day or whatever these call center guys are doing. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's an average term, but it's across the whole agent experience. And if we were
Yeah,
looking at those surveyed, this is where the results are coming from. So enabling RS clarity based upon the removing that wasted time element from the background noise. We're increasing that productivity, which in a contact center world, having your agents more productive, even 5% is amazing.
it's
Having them
huge.
more than 10% is even better. So think about it; it is a huge advantage, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do. But there is others though, my friend, and within this survey we covered um, that repetition piece that you just mentioned. So like 87% of people or customers have had to repeat themselves, and that's not just background through background noise, and that's not just because of the customer, that's also the agent, because that has affects that customer experience. And as a company, you want to have those high levels of standards around your customer experience. And if you're saying if 87% of those customers are saying they had to repeat themselves due to background noise, that's a lot. That's a hell
Mm.
of a lot. And that's the environment, that's the customer's environment, that's background noise from colleagues. That's tons of stuff just repeating. So imagine if we take away that noise from that customer, just from that customer, there's even fewer mistakes are made, and this will knock down the effect on, I guess, compliance. If you think about that as well, because if I'm going to read out something to you and you acknowledge it and say yes, and we've got some poor examples of non-compliance, you say something and at that particular time, and there's background noise that completely cuts it out. That is sensitive information, and if the card, if we can't acknowledge that on the recording, for example, or through the process of that compliance, GDPR or so other types of compliances, then that has massive impact and fines. But then there's also the other element around, if you think about that repetition, how does that affect your customers, CSAT surveys and those kind of things. So with Iris Clarity, we saw 30% less repetition with fewer, and less and fewer mistakes. That's big.
Mm.
That's a big growth. And we're seeing that, and I think the final one, really, the final slide that the final information that we took from these slides in this survey, essentially there was a one around the negative impact on mental health and well-being of agents. So a massive 69% said that the background noise has a negative effect on their own mental health and their own well-being.
So that's of the employees.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's horrible, and we know in the contact center world that there's a lot of burnout and walkout. I mean,
Yeah.
28% of agents leave in the first year. That's a lot. And we know that one of the leading outbound insurance companies, they have this type of churn, so they're always reusing those warrant claims. And the average hiring fee, if you think about the average hiring fee against an agent per hour, or if you look at it over the onboarding, it's around £6,000.
Mm.
That includes like the resource fee, the training, the hourly rate, the time, 2 months or so. So if we with the Clarity application enabled for these agents, that's 69%. That will increase the retention and the reduction of onboarding costs for these. So those 28 average of 28% leaving in the first year, you know, Clarity will have a big effect on that, and they'll have less likely to move on, and because they'll be a lot happier with their environment, their working environment, and we want them to be. So all of those things combined has a huge effect on how Clarity is not just reducing agent handling time, return on investments, are actually impacting those people who are actually making the calls and receiving the calls, that well-being and that mental health. So I think that's a really powerful message.
Yeah, no, I like it, and so thank you for sharing that. I think it's quite nice to end on certainly not just thinking about the quality of the call, but how happy your employees are, right? So um, that's very, very important.
Yeah.
What's next, right? So hardware, software then turns into a product. What's next on the roadmap?
So there's a few things that I can tell you about, and there's a few things that I can't, but only because we are still in development of those. And as I mentioned at the start, we're a very fast-paced, organization. Things are growing, developing very, very quickly. We're learning from each deployment, we're
Yeah.
learning from each implementation, and testing and other things like that. So if you think about this, so we have a real-time solution, which essentially is the Iris Clarity and the application we're talking about today. But then we also have something for post call, so after the event.
Mm.
And this is really designed to support those organizations that have a ton of recordings, which sometimes that audio is inaudible. So you really don't know what's going on. And essentially, with that, you can upload those recordings into what we call Iris Clarity Studio,
Hmm.
and it will clean those recordings up. And as I said, it's trained on voice, it's trained on understanding that spoken word. So it will clean out all background noise and any distractive noise and focus on the voice. So you'll have a much more coherent, much more audible, and much more compliant recording.
Mm.
Where that will be launched soon. I don't know when the date is yet because we're still thinking about it, and also other things with the Clarity product, the real time Clarity product probably take come ahead of that. But they're the sort of two products, so the real time and post call,
Mm.
and then it's about the consumption of it. So from our perspective, we want the world to listen well. So we want to enable organizations to have a tremendous experience and enhance all their customers and retention and that. But one of the things we want to do and want to offer is the ability to use our APIs and have like an SDK of our product embedded or baked into a solution. So much like some of these people do with like Pipedrive or other CRM platforms, we want to be able to offer that to these vendors and suppliers.
Mhm.
Say, look, improve your audio quality and also improve your post call recordings. Because if you're storing a load of recordings in Pipedrive and wherever, and you want to get those recordings out and make them a lot more audible, then the SDK will allow you to do that en masse, and you can pump them all in, and then the clean versions will come out in its simplest form.
Mm.
And that's really really powerful.
We've really downplayed the dev team there, haven't we?
We
Just pump
have,
it in
but
and send it.
they're not going to expect that anything better from me. To be fair, I don't pretend to know the technical side of things, but honestly, some of the stuff that we've been talking about, and there's a lot of strategic partnerships that we're also building out. We touched upon the whole, the headset versus Clarity. We're not a competitor; we're a
Mm.
complement.
Yeah.
That's how we want to be seen in the market. I don't want to go after Jabra's business, and I know they don't want to go after ours. And we each of us have got, it's just an example, but
Mm.
each of us have got great software, great AI engines, all of those kind of things, and we're all trying to do the same thing and improve it. So work together, those kind of things will only get better. And I think as the company grows, that's really an exciting part for us. The growth of the business, where we're going at the moment. We're very much focused US, UK, and with some organisations that we're touching upon more opportunistic in other regions. This will evolve into APAC, into Northern Europe, Southern Europe, in a wider footprint for us, having people on the street, and increase the developers, increase the certifications that we have. So it's a really exciting time. So it's
Mm.
not just about product enhancements; it's very much about how the company's growing and will continue to grow. So that's why it's exciting. And there's a lot of information you can get on our website. There's a lot of stuff that they can get for you as well. But really, early adoption with all of these customers, partners has been really impressive.
Mm.
We've had such a good impact from the partners and the customers, and right now we're scaling through partners, so we're not typically doing a direct sales model, although we have people supporting customers directly, as in from a sales perspective. Our real focus is really build a channel, grow and execute and scale through channel, and really provide those channel partners with a competitive advantage over and with our product there's not many people that do what we do,
Yeah.
so therefore there's not really too much competition for those partners, so they can have a different conversation, or we call it a value wedge or a sales wedge,
Yeah.
a door opener for other conversations. So honestly, Bruce, it's an exciting time. I know you see that, and for me it's a great move, and I'm really enjoying being here.
Good, good. Yeah, and so just on that last point, we'll be sure to have links in the description below to get in touch with myself or the team at Evolve, and or directly with Russell as well. So, um, yeah, thanks for the shout out there. In terms of Iris and Pipedrive, I mean, so if people are on Pipedrive, how would they integrate the system? So you mentioned it's a standalone app. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I mean, when we'll demo it, and we'll go through the demo and show you that. But essentially, it's deployed locally, so it's downloaded from our platform, and it's downloaded as a local application, and it sits on your toolbar, and essentially, it will once integrated to the voice part of your whatever device you're using to speak and listen to certain conversations, whether that's through platforms like Zoom or traditional contact center platforms that are using Genesis and Gamma and all kinds of other wonderful things. It will transport that voice over. So once that's downloaded, it's sitting there and it's in place. The part with Pipedrive, because Pipedrive is CRM, it will any of those recordings, if you've got that audio integration built into Pipedrive. I know there's a few that there are available. Then, as long as they're making those calls over Pipedrive and the recordings are stored in Pipedrive, the call through, it will be picked up on the particular audio pathway. So I tried it earlier today with Zoom, for example, Zoom phone, and I called in to click to call from my Pipedrive, and it called directly through onto. It opened up the Zoom application, Zoom phone application, and called straight through.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was using, and we already have the integration with Zoom, and Zoom's set up from an Iris perspective, the call was clear. That call quality was clear. And it's important to note that there are platforms that have noise cancelling abilities in there, and they might not necessarily work to the same. They don't work to the same way as we work, but with Pipedrive and an audio conference or audio provider, that combined layered with Iris will give that experience to the agent, that salesperson, making lots of calls. They're using a dialer with Pipedrive and other things. We're there to enhance the audio
Yeah.
experience on both ends. So providing there's an audio integration into Pipedrive, you've got the click to call functionality. It's a nice way to leverage the Pipedrive ecosystem.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Russell. So before we look to close, just a little question about your story, right? So your story of how you started your trainer collection. What is your favorite shoe in your
Oh
collection, and
man,
what's on your wish list?
man. Okay, so where do I start? I mean, so the story is right. I grew up in so I was born in late '70s, grew up in the '80s, and I followed sport from sort of mid '80s onwards. And basketball, football, and those kind of things were
Mm,
really important to me. Got into the early '90s, and really the trend of training kicked off, and so. Um, I really liked Air Jordans and Nike Air Max. At the time, I really couldn't afford them, or rather, my parents couldn't really afford them.
yeah,
I spent the first year, and this is a true story. So I spent my birthday money when I was 13, and then my Christmas money that year, and then again my 14th birthday money. So to buy myself a first pair of Nike Air Max trainers, and they were approximately £75. I remember roughly about
yeah.
that. 30 years later, okay, Nike re-released them. I bought them, and they're these. Now they don't
Hey,
look much, but
yeah,
these are the first pair of trainers I ever owned and bought. And but these are a remake, so obviously they can't be 30 odd years old.
yeah.
But this is where it started. So, but my favorite pair. Do you know what? Honestly, from a nostalgic perspective, something like this. This is something. There's a story behind this one. I'll tell you that quickly before I end the conversation. I was in Harrods with my mum when I was again about 13, 14, and I saw those trainers and I was like, oh wow, love them.
What are yeah?
Obviously couldn't afford them. It's Christmas time. I was kind of, and then this Christmas, my mum gave me some money. She said, well, do what you like with it. Just get yourself something. And I was like, do you know what? I'd really like these, and I pulled them, and literally they are remakes again from back in the day. Bo Jackson's, they are SE highs, if anyone wants to know what they are.
I love it.
But
And
yeah,
what's on the wish list now?
so as a couple, actually, there's a Nike Air Force One and Tiffany and Co collaboration.
Okay.
That's a good one, but there's a raffle going on with that, and there's another one which probably later in the year, which is a colorway which is called UNC, which is what Jordan's when he was at University of Carolina. He had that color pale blue,
Mm,
and they're bringing them out again in other forms of Jordan 5s and Jordan 3s, which is a Jordan 5 is that, and that's a Fresh
yeah,
Prince of Bel Air one as well. So if you remember Fresh Prince of Bel Air,
yeah.
that's what he wore. So yeah, that's kind of where it all comes from, mate. And I could talk for hours on them, and I've
Oh,
got
I love it.
sold out. That's another good one. Yeah, honestly, I could talk for hours on it.
I love it. My now wife, she got some. I don't know if it was Jordan's, but basically Liberty do a really cool collab. They used to do it with Nike a few years back. So Liberty printed Nikes, and they were always pretty funky.
Yeah.
She's got a few of those pairs, and yeah, she'll love that I gave her a shout out again on the podcast. So
Cheers.
um,
Up.
yeah, Russell, thank you very much, and that's it for this week. Thank you for listening to Evolve Pipedrive podcast, where we talk all things Pipedrive, sales, apps, and the Pipedrive marketplace. At Evolve, we're trying to help people that are on Pipedrive or considering the CRM switch to get the most out of the system. So if you found this insightful, please let us know what you think in the comments. Hit like, subscribe, or share with someone that you think will find this useful. We value all your feedback. Russell, thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Take care. Thanks
Cheers.
all. Bye.